Across Nigeria, crowds of people chanting and waving placards bearing a simple yet powerful message: end bad governance in Nigeria. These are the voices of a nation pushed to the brink, why the cost of living has become unbearable and why dreams of a better future seem to slip further away every day. Africa's most populous country is in turmoil. 1 year ago, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu introduced sweeping reforms to revive a struggling economy. But they brought a harsh reality: soaring inflation, a currency sharply devalued, and fuel prices that have tripled. For many Nigerians, daily life has become a battle against soaring food prices and uncertainty, a battle for survival. Government officials claim that no lives have been lost in the protests, but Amnesty International reports that at least 22 protesters have been killed across 6 states. Grieving families say these are not just protests anymore, but a cry for justice.
Wake up, Nigeria! Say no to bad government!
And these cries are echoing beyond Nigeria's borders. From Kenya to Uganda, similar frustrations over the cost of living are being voiced, leading some analysts to suggest that an African spring might erupt. But others caution that while there may be parallels, the connections are tenuous, and the full story of this unrest is more complex. The stakes are high, the voices are loud. I am Ahmed Idris. Join us on this episode of Talk to Al Jazeera, where we explore these questions and meet some of the people affected by the economic turmoil to understand what's happening on the ground. As Nigeria grapples with rising costs and growing discontent, Deji Adeyenju, a lawyer and activist, sheds light on the underlying issues that have driven people to the streets.
Nigerians went to protest against hunger, against poverty, against a lot of unemployment, insecurity, and also hyperinflation in the country. Prices of goods and services that used to be affordable are no longer affordable. For a very simple analogy, for instance, when this president came on board, a liter of petrol was 167 naira. Today, a liter of petrol is about 700 naira, depending on where you are buying from. That is unbelievable. Also, the issue of a crate of egg, which is like one of the basic protein that people eat, was about 1,400 naira when this president came. It's now about 5,000 naira. That's triple or quadruple the normal price. And citizens cannot just understand why prices of goods and services keep going up. This is why people were on the street.
For 10 days, the protests were scheduled for 10 days. What would you say worked and didn't work?
Yes, so basically democracy worked because there was a lot of threats for almost 3 weeks to Nigerians, and Nigerians cannot protest. Nigerians must not protest. Nigerians must not come out to protest. The military threatened people. The police threatened people. They even went as far as getting court orders to restrict protesters to specific venues across the country, which is completely unacceptable in any democracy. The government threatened people that people should not protest. People cannot protest. They even planned bombs at some locations and said it was...
But they said it was extremists.
Extremists that planted the bombs just to dissuade protesters. They didn't want the protest to hold because according to them, they believe that if the protest hold, many Nigerians will key into the protest and the country will be liberated from suffering and oppression. And ironically, the protest was about ending bad governance. So I don't understand why government has an issue with an end bad governance protest, except if government wants bad governance to continue, or supporters of government. The protest also, we witnessed a situation where a lot of protesters were attacked by the security agencies, the army and the police. Many protesters were killed in Borno, in Kaduna, here in Abuja.
Security forces say they only use tear gas and not live ammunition.
There is ample evidence, video evidence, and physical evidence to suggest that protesters were killed by the police and the army in this protest. Here in Abuja was not an exception. In Azare, even a minor was killed. Here in Abuja, a minor was killed. In Kaduna, protesters were killed. In Kano, protesters were killed.
But right now, what was achieved during the protest? What would we say are tangible achievements of this protest?
Basically, this protest has been a reawakening that indeed citizens have the right, in line with Section 42 of our Constitution, to protest, to freedom of assembly. So that right has been emphasized by the citizenry, despite all the threats, harassment, intimidation, attempt to bribe protesters from protesting, attempts to hoodwink protesters by religious and tribal traditional rulers. Citizens demanded and decided that they must protest, and they have. So the constitutional right to freedom of assembly has been strengthened by this protest. Yes, the demands of the protesters, like return of fuel subsidy, like cutting cost of governance, like improving the security architecture in the country, have not been met. Several of these demands have not been met. However, it is noteworthy to point out that protesters are pleased with the fact that they overcame all the threats and harassment by government agencies and its proxies by coming out on the streets to protest. Also, this protest has actually shown that indeed we have the capacity and the resources to tackle insecurity in the country. Just that government refuses, neglect, or fail to do so. Because if you look at the security deployments during the protests, it simply means that the country can actually overcome its security challenges with the bandits and terrorists here and there. Because imagine if government had dedicated this amount of resource to actually tackling insecurity in the country. You know, it will have become a thing of the past.
During the protest, we saw things go out of control, out of hand in certain states. Kano, for example, looting and all that. What happened? Yes,
basically, government had devised a strategy that one of the ways to discredit this protest is by engineering hoodlums.
You mean they were sponsored?
Yes, they were sponsored. We have credible intel. In fact, the governor of Kano and several people in Kano exposed that many members of the ruling party were the ones that led people to the warehouse to loot things in the warehouse.
But don't you think it's a political thing in Kano itself, like the governing party there and the opposition are trading?
Yeah. You see, the freedom of protest and the right to protest is a constitutionally guaranteed right. There's nobody, whether those who are governing and those who are governed, that is not feeling the pinch of the maladministration and the bad policies of this government.
One of the key demands of the protesters was the reinstatement of the fuel subsidy. Reduction in the electricity tariff.
Yes.
The president said those changes were necessary to cut sleaze, to develop the economy and to grow the nation. You don't seem to agree with that.
No Nigerian agrees with the president. No Nigerian.
Why?
The reason is very simple. Since the removal of subsidy about a year ago, no development has taken place in the country. No.
But the government said it has generated a lot of money.
Yes, they've generated a lot of money to share among themselves. But the Nigerian people and the Nigerian economy has been on the receiving end. And it's a very simple analogy. Our economy is largely dependent on petrol. So the prices of petrol will affect the price of bread in the market. It will affect the price of rice. It will affect the price of wheat. The bakeries will suffer. The textile industries will suffer. So why don't you subsidize the economy instead of subsidizing politicians? So that is the argument of the protesters and majority of Nigerians. If you take an opinion poll among almost 100% of Nigerians, almost 90% will agree that first subsidy should come back. Government does not understand appeals. Government does not understand the suffering. Government does not even understand the need to change the bad economic policies that is affecting and hurting the economy.
15 demands came up during this protest. Are they achievable? Are they measurable? And are they possible?
These demands, they resonate with the Nigerian people. Like
absolutely, everybody was like, yeah, this is what we've been.
Yes. Like
so are they achievable?
Yes, they are achievable. And we have seen that when it was time to get the presidential jet, it was done with the speed of light.
Yeah, but the members of National Assembly reduced their salaries for 6 months. You're not impressed?
That is political. There's no reduction because the benefits accruable to them keeps increasing. So again, when it was time to extend the tenure of the Inspector General of Police, that was just hurriedly done in a day. The entire legislation and amendment was done in a day. When it was time to buy cars for all the legislators, it was done in a day. When it was time to generate more money and share more money for the governors, it was done in a day. So when it concerns them, the ruling elites, the politicians, government acts speedily. Why can't we meet the demand of the generality of the people? Because the Constitution is clear. The Constitution under Section 14 of the Constitution says sovereignty lies with the people from wherein the government derives of its power. So if the people are the owners of the government, why can't their demands be met?
Adeyanju highlights a critical point, the role of government subsidies. To understand their impact at a grassroots level, we turn to Haruna Boro, a farmer who, like many others, relies on agriculture to support his family and community, and whose future looks increasingly uncertain.
There is no any good return from that very well, just to keep life going. Because if you are hoping to get a good return, by the time you calculate the money that you are spending, you are put in the farming, and then what you harvest, you compare the two, you will discover that you are running at a loss. So, would you carry the food and go and sell in the market when you don't have food inside your house? It's not possible. So what you actually try to put together, you keep it, so that at least you have something to eat at home with your family.
Now, a lot of Nigerians are talking about how expensive food has become in the markets, and they sort of blame you for the high prices of food stuff in the market. How do you react to that?
Farmers are not to be blamed.
Why?
For these issues. Number one, government, they say that they have subsidized fertilizer for the farmers. In the past, we can get one bag at the rate of 15,000, at most 20,000. That is, we are talking of 15,000. That is the urea is around 15,000. The highest quality is around 25.
So you're talking about like $10 to $15 per bag.
Exactly.
How much is it now?
Like presently now, a bag of fertilizer is going for like 41 up to 45,000.
That's around $30.
Around $30.
So the price have sort of tripled.
The price have tripled. Which office can actually get those subsidized fertilizers? They say that they have tractors. Where can we actually get the tractors? Farmer will pay for everything, from the planting up to the harvest, up to when pests are being, there's this kind of maggot, caterpillars, that are eating up corn, commercial corn. If it's trying to come up, you will see it eating it up. You have to buy the pesticide to make sure that those things are being controlled. So all those things, by the time you add all those things together, why would the price of the farm produce will not be high in the market? So farmers are not to be blamed because they are passing through tough time to make their living. Let me just tell you the truth. Nigerians, they are passing through tough time. I'm telling the truth. Some people, they are feeling, in fact, some people, if they can actually cook in a day, in fact, they should appreciate God.
If you look at the potentials or the potential of agriculture in Nigeria, and you see all these problems, like the corruption in the system, the problems you face like banditry and all this, how does it make you feel as a farmer?
I feel very bad and unhappy because this one is an internal problem that we can actually solve it.
So Haruna, where do you see the future of agriculture in Nigeria? Let's say for the next 5-10 years. Why do you see the future of agriculture?
The future of agriculture is very, very bright in Nigeria. There's still hope for Nigeria. If the Bank of Agriculture, together with the Ministry of Agriculture, are actually willing to do so, the future of Nigerian farmers is very, very bright because there's a lot of land that's unutilized. In fact, apart from farming corn, maize, and the rest, there are other things that we can actually farm. And what about the cotton? What about the groundnut? The groundnut pyramid that we talked about in the past. I can only hear the history, but I'm not seeing it on ground. So if Kano State we are able to survive and we are producing groundnut, and up to that one extent, and they are even calling it groundnut pyramid. I think we can even do better in this 21st century. Yes.
Nigeria's agricultural sector challenges are only one piece of a larger puzzle. The ripple effects of a faltering economy are being felt across all layers of society, particularly among those often seen as the backbone of economic development, the middle class. Emmanuel Okoli, a businessman in the metal welding industry, represents such people.
Looking at Nigeria today, this is a country of more than 120 million people. People will assume that businessmen like you are comfortable. Is it a true reflection of what it is?
Well, what is happening in Nigeria today, our economy is already bad. The only encourage is don't lose hope. Struggle continue. No any condition is permanent. Let me give you as an example, like in this my business. I have been in this work over 35 years.
But in terms of income and profits...
Income, you can never take a period of income now.
Why?
To compare, because things are very expensive. Like this material, what we are buying like 2,000 before is now almost 10,000 naira. You understand me? That's the only problem we are having on it. Because no matter whatever you do, you will not have enough profit on it. God bless this nation. Look at fuel. Do you know price of fuel today? Look at Ajokuta. You see what is there?
The steel company that has been there for more than 40 years. If that thing is
working, we don't have much problem. How many thousand employment will be there? Look at fuel. Go to Niger Delta. What we are having in our country, we are importing. Okay, look at it.
Why is the problem? Nigeria has a lot of resources. Why is the problem?
It's the management. I won't tell you lies. Bad governance. And who called politicians? They have killed us. Then we promised and failed. People are suffering. During the campaign, they will tell you heaven and earth. We vote, we're having hope. Zero. So I don't know where to start.
Right now, the economy is in a crisis, right? So some people say they can't function properly, like building houses. Do you still see a drop in orders that you receive from your customers, or despite the harsh economic realities, orders still come?
What I will say is that when you talk of, hardship is everybody, generally, even you. Go to estates. Most of estate developer is no more like before.
So you don't get as much order like before? No more
job like before. Many estate developers, they close. Some people that is function, house is expensive. How much do you buy a bag of cement? We are selling 3,500 before to 13,500. Today is 7,400. How many bags will we take, even downstairs? How many bags will we take to fabricate downstairs? Lord, this Y12 or this, so it is very expensive. What I can say for government is, let them look into it. At least free importation, if they can open border, because this thing can never stop overnight. It's not by magic. It's a gradually, because no condition is permanent. But the major problem is our leaders. Let them come down. Let them come down. It's not when they give you opportunity, it will be only you and your family. It will know is if there's people that voted you in there. Like our president, I know I won't blame him much because things are already spoiled. But let him listen to people because God bless this nation. Let me say it again. Look at Ajokute State. About millions of workers. In that place is function, millions of workers. Look at our NNPC. We have crude oil. Why are they refining oil in our blood, bringing it in? Can't they do it here? We don't even need to suffer. What that increases this nation is management. Management. Our leaders are deceiving us. We still have hope. Nigeria will still good.
Okoli's hope contrasts with the bleak realities many Nigerians face. Yet it is a sentiment echoed by others in government. We spoke with Nigerian Information Minister Ahmed Idris to explore this further. Though painful now, he believes that the reforms lay the foundation for a stronger economy.
There was a recognition that subsidy needed to go for Nigeria to have the needed resources to put into critical sectors of our economy. So President Bola Tinubu became the president, and of course the responsibility fell on him to take that very bold and courageous decision to ensure that subsidy had to go. We had an economy where about 97% of our revenues going into payment of debts and other services. That is unsustainable. That left us with virtually nothing to put into healthcare, to put into education, to put into agriculture and other critical sectors.
Over decades, we've seen the distrust between Nigerians and their governments. Their one main concern was these savings from the removal of subsidy is not reflected in their daily lives.
Well, I would say that may be true, but not after President Bola Tinubu came into office. Massive investment began to occur in our landscape. And even the subnationals, in this case the state governments, the local governments, began to see more revenues going to them. And for those of them who were also very serious, were investing in very critical areas as well. So this is not possible if 97% of revenues accruing to government was being flared away because someone was paying subsidy at some point.
I know your government doesn't like the word subsidy.
Yes.
Are you willing to subsidize agriculture to make the ordinary farmer who produces most of the domestic needs of Nigerian food cheaply?
I think that agriculture to a large extent has already been subsidized because farmers are being given implements, the land preparation is happening. Government is investing heavily in mechanization to ensure that implements, improved seedlings are available for our farmers. If you recall, some of the subnationals have also taken up the challenge of subsidizing, for example, fuel that they put into small generators that they use to power some of the small equipment on the farms to ensure that farming is being taken beyond the subsistence level in this country. So I think that a lot is happening in the agricultural sector as well.
There was a tariff review that increased the amount people pay for electricity in Nigeria. Is it something that the government is willing to give? I mean, reversing those tariffs at the moment because they feel that it's too expensive to produce now because of electricity is too costly?
Well, let me correct this notion that tariffs have gone up for all Nigerians. I think what has happened is that only about 15% of those that call the band A consumers have their tariffs increased. 85% of Nigerians still have subsidy being paid for them by government in electricity.
This is the biggest oil producer in Africa, yet it imports petroleum products. Nigeria has about 4 refineries, government-owned, and people don't understand why should Nigeria import petroleum products.
Government is worried about that as well. It is true that unless and until this country gets back to refining its own oil, we cannot continue to import. It's unacceptable. The president has charged the operators in that sector that they need to work hard to ensure that our refineries come back to life.
President Tinubu, 3 days after the start of the protest on the streets of Nigeria, called for dialogue. What happened to that call? Has there been any response? Has there been any move or movement on that part, dialogue between organizers of the protest and the Nigerian government?
The unfortunate situation about this is that there is sadly no coherence, no structure on behalf of, on the side of protesters to even get this organized. And that was what led to the violence and the mayhem that you saw unleashed during the period of the protest. Government was very concerned about that at the very beginning. And that was why warnings were being given that we didn't even want this protest to happen in the first place, because if they did, the likelihood was that some hoodlums and criminal elements will hijack them and use them, because we saw very clearly that they lacked coherence, they lacked structure, They lacked the kind of organization that you needed to engage. You see, government is always willing to do everything that will ensure that its citizens get the best out of their government.
Including the reinstatement of fuel subsidy?
Well, you see, subsidy, I mean, if you saw some of those demands, so some of the protesters were saying, or one of the demands of the protesters was that they wanted fuel subsidy to go back to, in some instances, pre-2000, maybe pricing going back over 20 years ago. Even with the inflationary period that you see happening globally, I mean, it's almost impossible for that to happen.
We saw how violence erupted throughout in large parts of the country, leading to some deaths. Amnesty is talking about more than 20 have been killed. What's the reaction to what is being said that the Nigerian security forces used excessive force in tackling the protesters?
I think this is largely untrue. Let me say that if you look at the first few hours on day one of the protest, the security agencies were actually in their best. Once you have an uncoordinated protest such as the one that we had, the chances were that violence was going to break out, and so the security agencies had to move in.
I'll say that this country is heading for the rocks because something eventually must give. Because a situation where people can no longer feed, where people can barely survive, protest is inevitable. We have seen what happened in Bangladesh. The people were pushed to the brink, and when the people have been pushed to the brink, people have no option but to bounce back. The government is still very lucky and fortunate that protests were announced, a date was given, a venue was given. Unfortunately for the government, time is running out, but they do not know it yet. The politicians, they think they are immune from the suffering in the country. You see, someone gave a brilliant analogy, which I would like to re-echo again on this platform, that when the Titanic was sinking, people in the upper deck did not know what people on the lower deck were facing. People thought, oh, all is well, oh, it's just going this side, oh, it's still well. But people in the economy already knew that the Titanic was sinking and they were being choked by the pressure of the water coming on board. But people at the upper deck, they did not realize, they did not understand what was going on. That is the current situation of Nigeria. People are choking. The citizenry is choking. But the ruling elite, the people that live in Asokoro, in Ikoyi, in Victoria Island, in Eko Atlantic, they do not understand what is going on. They do not understand that there is problem all around us. They do not understand that the poverty all around us is going to eventually engulf and sink the ship. So they cannot relate with the fact that people are suffering and people are complaining about fuel subsidy because they are immune from the economic challenges of fuel subsidy. So the unexpected protest is coming.